Eric. Eric.
Can you hear me?
I can sort of hear you. It's a little chopping in and out. Not now. Nope. I'm guessing you can hear me okay.
How about now?
Yep, now I can hear you.
How you
How's
been?
it going? Good, good. How's everyone doing?
Good. I had 2 days off this week, so
Oh,
I
nice.
got you late.
All good. Always good to have a shorter week.
Oh yeah. No Erica today. Maybe Rosia will be here today. I don't know that she will.
Okay. We can give it a few minutes.
We got some good a good amount of people here already though.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm going to be introducing myself once we get started. I'm just going to paste in the access link to the Career Launchpad program, which I'll talk about at the end of this presentation. So if you are not yet signed up for the Career Launchpad, you can click on that link and sign up for free. But again, we'll talk through it towards the end of this workshop. I've also linked out a link to our exclusive Facebook group for the Career Launchpad Collective. So definitely join that. It's a forum where you can ask questions, join our group Q&A calls that happen periodically to just some additional support while you're on your career journey. Eric, I think you're a part of that, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Hey, Wazella.
I had a question for you.
Yeah.
Not related to Career Launchpad, more related to separate. Do you have a favorite series that you're original series that you're working on currently?
Oh, that I'm working on currently?
Or have worked on?
Have worked on. Well, so I'm actually just now getting into Ozark, which is such an amazing series. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but yeah, I'm loving that one. I guess my favorite of all time, that'd be a tricky one. You know, I still haven't seen Stranger Things. I feel like I need to see that. I know. I know. I love Narcos. I love The Crown. You know, I just love really good production value that tends to be like Emmy award winning type stuff.
Yeah.
But that being said, I do like my fair share of like comedy stuff, like Family Guy, South Park, that kind of thing. So it doesn't need to be like highbrow.
Right.
But those two shows definitely stand out to me. We actually did have a decent one come out called Away, and it's about Hilary Swank going to space and trying to reach Mars.
I
And
have
so,
seen
yeah,
promoted on there, but I haven't actually watched it yet. I have a lot of
yeah,
stuff
it's
to do, like waiting.
yeah, it's like if there was a spectrum of like drama versus like cool problem solving in space, it skews definitely more to the drama side. But I just think it's a really cool, it's a really well done show. Yeah.
I'll check that out.
What about you?
I have a lot. I think one of my more favorite recent ones was the Netflix brought back the Unsolved Mysteries series.
Hmm.
Um, that like I just like the true crime drama or
Yeah.
a docu series kind of thing. Um, I did just recently watch the Enola Holmes this weekend.
Yeah, I saw that. How'd you like it?
I liked it. It was different than I think what I was expecting. Um, but I've never really been a fan of like the Sherlock series.
Mhm. Yeah. All right, cool. Um, yeah, it was a decent film. A lot of good production value. I think really solid acting talent, but um, yeah, definitely it's based on some really big, stories and IP. So it has its value in and of itself just by the name, right?
Right. It's a cult following.
Um, yeah, cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I think for this one, I don't know that.
You guys still waiting in line. So can you pull up a little higher? Thank you so much.
I think, Brandon, we have you on the microphone. If you could go on mute. There we go. Thank you. All right, great. So let's go ahead and get started. I will try to monitor the wait room. Hopefully we don't have more people coming in a little bit later on, but there will be a recording. And on that note, this call will be recorded and made available to NDNU after the fact so that people can watch this webinar if they couldn't attend live. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can jump into it. All right. Can everyone, Eric, can you see the screen here?
Yes, sir.
Cool. All right, let's get into it. So today we're going to be talking about crafting your career hypothesis and creating your career plan. So this is part of a monthly series that we're doing with NDNU in partnership with the Career Launchpad program. Our first of these workshops was a couple of weeks ago where we walked through the entire process, step by step, of how to find your first internship or job as a college student. So if you haven't seen that one, definitely after this webinar, check that one out. I'm sure, Eric, it's somewhere on the NDNU site. Is that correct?
Not yet, but it will be.
Okay, it will be. And so this is kind of the deeper dive on that first step specifically, which is how to start somewhere. So if you're at a point in your career where you're starting to think about, okay, what's my plan after graduation, or I want to get an internship, where do I start? This is the right webinar for you. Even if you go ahead, sorry. Oh, I think we have someone. There we go. And I think, even if you know exactly what you want to do, but you just need to refine it a bit more and get more specific, this will help you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and present for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to do like a 15, 20-minute Q&A at the end. If you guys have any questions about what we talked about today or putting any other things in practice, we'll cover that as well. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started. Our goal for you today, again, is twofold: to craft your career hypothesis and create a recruiting game plan for yourself. So just some brief background about the Career Launchpad. It's basically a program that my brother and I put together after we both went through the undergrad process of finding careers in really competitive fields. My brother is a product manager at LinkedIn. I work at Netflix as part of the marketing strategy team. And across our careers during our 20s, we realized that there's a lot of bad career advice out there that's kind of outdated. And as I'm sure many of you can relate to, just trying to apply to jobs online and never hearing back from recruiters, it's a very noisy world out there. And so Rohan and I have kind of put our heads together to develop this course, which is the one-stop resource that you need to build your career. So everything from how to build a resume to a cover letter to networking and doing all the stuff in between, this course will have you covered. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So all you need to know from this page is that Rohan and I are really passionate about helping college students get their dream careers. a little background about myself. I grew up as a marching band nerd. You can see that on the left-hand side. I played the alto saxophone, and so music was a big part of my life growing up. But I definitely focused more on music than academics. So when I looked to apply to UCLA my senior year of high school and didn't get in, I got that rejection letter on the right-hand side. A couple months after getting rejected in my senior year of high school, I actually got a call from the music director at UCLA who had seen a clip of me on YouTube playing the saxophone. And he was like, you know what, why don't you audition for the UCLA marching band? And I was like, I didn't even get in, so how would that work? And he's like, don't worry about that, just audition and we'll figure out how to get you into the back door. And so long story short, I gave the best audition of my life, I think, and was able to get into the university through the music program. So getting into my dream school was definitely a blessing and a curse. I'm sure many of you can realize back when we had in-person classes on the left-hand side, think about your first day on campus at NDNU. It's just like how intimidating it might have seemed to some of you, being surrounded by a bunch of students who are equally as bright as you are, and just having to compete, right, and do well. And that's what I felt at UCLA, except everyone in that room was on paper academically more qualified and more likely to succeed than I was. So I was freaking out about how am I going to compete in the classroom? Forget about finding a job, just how am I going to not fail out of UCLA? And really, I struggled for that first year during my freshman year. And after that summer, I kind of got into this mindset of, you know what, I'm definitely not supposed to be at this university. It's a bit out of my league, but what if I were to treat that as an opportunity and be a sponge and soak up the knowledge that's around me and really work with others? So I started to join student groups, attend professor office hours, do group study sessions, and really try to, immerse myself in the community and learn from everyone else who had their own strengths and ways of being bright. And that really changed my college experience. And I just got a lot more career focused and was able to get really specific on what I wanted to do. Long story short, my junior year summer, I ended up working at a company called LEK Consulting, which you can see over here with my mouse right below Teach for America. And it was listed on Glassdoor's top 25 toughest companies to interview with in the country. So all the things that I've learned looking for my first job out of college, those are things that have been applied in a very competitive environment. So we're excited to share those resources with you today. And during that internship, my junior year, I got this really cool email from our head of HR, and they CC'd all the other students who were part of the internship program. And I just looked at the list, and it was really cool to see, Ivy League students from Berkeley, Stanford, and NYU, and Georgetown, and all these great institutions. And I was like, what was I doing here? I'm a saxophone player who got into the back door. And it was kind of a cool reflection moment of like, there seems to be a disconnect between what we're taught is success in the academic world, which is getting good grades and doing well on standardized tests, which is important. But then there's a disconnect when it comes time to find a job. And there's actually a whole host of other skills that I was able to learn that I don't think enough students learn to really put yourself in that upper echelon of career success. So this kind of email was a good reminder that I had to do very different things to get very different results. And I think that's my message to all of you as part of this monthly webinar series, is doing different things to get really cool results that are not normal. Okay, so basically we've figured out the hard stuff so you don't have to. So we're with you every step of the way, and anytime you have a question or you want to hop on one of these calls like a webinar and ask questions, you will have our support. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and get into the presentation. So today we're going to cover two things. Part one is going to be focused on crafting your career hypothesis, and this is going to involve three things: defining a career hypothesis, brainstorming your own career hypothesis, and then validating your career hypothesis. And I'll define all that eventually. And then in part two, we're going to talk about creating your recruiting game plan. So how do you build your plan backwards? What milestones and action items do you have to set for yourself? And how can you get started today? So with that, let's jump into part one, crafting your career hypothesis. So most people in college make their career decisions like this. You kind of see what other students are doing, right? And you're like, okay, everyone seems to be going after this employer or this opportunity. I probably should be too. And it's kind of like this herd mentality, right? But when you want to think about your career, it's a pretty big deal, right? It's going to be something that you're doing for a long time. And so you want to make sure that it's right for you and not based on what your friends or what your family think you should be doing. So how do you really do that? The secret is having a career hypothesis. So what is that? It's a best guess at what you want to do as a professional. It's just a guess. Now, why are we guessing? Consider the following. Discovering your dream job isn't something you're going to know as a 19, 20, 21-year-old or even later on in your 20s. It's a process that happens gradually over decades through process of elimination. So the idea that you guys on this call right now know exactly what you want to do for the next 50 years of your life. It's just not true. And I think that removes a lot of stress from beginning the career journey. And so hopefully that's a little bit of a relaxing thing to hear, which is like, you just need to go out and try stuff. You don't need to get it right. Also consider that the average person changes jobs 11 times between the ages of 18 to 49. That's once every 2.5 years. So think about how many times you might have changed your major at NDNU, thought about doing something different. That definitely will translate into the real world. So the days of staying with the same employer for like 30 or 40 years are over, and people are a lot more mobile with their careers, which I think is great. And then, yeah, like I said, how many times have you thought about changing your major? And also consider, Rohan and I, both of our jobs didn't even exist 10 years ago. I mean, you can imagine Netflix was a different company 10 years ago. LinkedIn was a different social media space 10 years ago. So my brother's job didn't even exist. And so as we think about how much change is happening in today's world, especially with COVID, I mean, let's just think 2030. How will the world look different in 2030 than it does today? I don't think any of us can wrap our heads around what that might look like. So why would you want to plan for it in terms of your career? Now, the difference is you definitely do want to understand key trends that are going on in whatever industry you're interested in, and understand those key trends and what career opportunities are there. But artificially saying by 2030, I want to be XYZ type of person, I think is a bit short-sighted. So definitely, just keep in mind how fast the world is changing. And excitingly for everyone on this call is that just means more opportunity to do really fun things. Okay, so let's go into the 3-step process to build your career hypothesis. And we're actually going to do an exercise together. So step 1 is to craft your career hypothesis. Step 2 is to test it. And then step 3 is to refine it until you get it right. So let's talk about step 1 first. A good career hypothesis is 2 parts. Number 1, the type of role. And number 2, the type of industry. So here I'm going to read you a couple of career hypothesis statements. I think I want to become a product manager in the technology industry. I think I want to become a digital marketer in the makeup industry. I think I want to become a healthcare provider in the sports industry. So note, a couple of common things here. Every career hypothesis starts with I think. You don't have to say, I know for sure, I'm going to bet my entire career on something. It's just, I think. You're taking a guess, right? And then I want to become a blank in the blank industry. So note the 2 parts there. Number 1 is the role. So what type of career do you want to do? What do you want to specialize in? Is it marketing? Is it tech? Is it computer science? Is it healthcare? Like, what is the actual job you want to do? And then the second part is in what industry, right? So for those of you who want to be in finance or in marketing or even teaching, there's so many ways that you can teach. So how can you get more specific? So in the technology industry, in the makeup industry, I want to teach specifically K through 12 or special needs children. So you can get more specific by not only specifying the role, but also the type of environment that you want to do that role in. So how do we actually craft our career hypothesis? Here are a couple of ideas. If you're on this call and you're not really sure where to start, think about some of these things. So have you taken any classes in high school or college that have genuinely interested you? Have you had any conversations with people and thought, wow, this sounds really cool. Like, I would love to explore this more. Have you had any experiences? Maybe you already have an internship experience under your belt and you already know what topic interests you. Do you read any blogs online or any books and you're really passionate about a particular topic? And then one of my favorite ones is consumerism. Just look around you and what kind of products do you buy and are you really passionate about them? So like that makeup example might be a good one for some of you in terms of like, hey, if you know a lot about makeup, maybe it's an interesting career opportunity to explore. So looking at the things that you buy and the things that you're passionate about can be a good place to start your career. So these are some examples of how you can brainstorm. Where can I start for my career hypothesis? How do I know what interests me? Some of these things can provide some ideas for you to consider. So what I'd like to do right now is to take a minute. We're going to go on pause. And I want you to think about your career hypothesis. And again, it should be, I think I want to become a blank in the blank industry. And if you're ready to share, feel free to enter it in the chat box and I'll just call it out. And if we need to workshop some of these, we can. So again, I think I want to become a blank in the blank industry. And I will leave this up as kind of some ideas that you can think about. So let's go ahead and take a minute and brainstorm on our own. Marissa says, I think I want to become a therapist, counselor in the mental health industry. Perfect. Brandon says, I want to become a special education teacher at a school. Perfect. See if we have anyone else. Oh, wow. Okay. Marissa's like, I know I want to. Even better. Conviction always helps.
I was trying to go with the whole theme of I think.
Yeah, hey, if you know, all the more power to you. Even Brandon didn't even say I think. He's like, I want to become. So good on you. All right, anyone else want to enter theirs in? Again, no pressure. This is a really quick exercise. And for those of you listening at home, feel free to do this exercise on your own. Generally speaking, we're doing this 2-minute long exercise just as an example. A career hypothesis is something I revisit almost on a monthly or 6-month basis. It's something that you're going to continue to think about as you have more experiences. Once you start your first internship, your first job out of college, you're going to have some experience to really inform, okay, was my career hypothesis right or was it wrong? And we'll talk about that in a moment. But just know that a career hypothesis, this exercise isn't something you do once and then you kind of set it and forget it. It's something that you're going to constantly revisit and maybe you want to spend more time thinking about. But this is just an exercise to get you familiar with the process of how to create a hypothesis for yourself. Okay, let's go ahead and move on here. All right, so once we have a career hypothesis, the second step is to test it out. Now, there's a number of ways to test out your career hypothesis, and here's an illustration that my brother and I made. Most of us think, okay, I have a career hypothesis. I want to be a special education teacher at a school. My next step is to find a job. And that's a very classical way of thinking. It's not wrong, but it's a very high level of difficulty way to test your career hypothesis. I mean, think about how hard it is to find a job, especially when you don't have any prior experience. It's like, is that really going to be the first way that you figure out if special education teaching is right or wrong for you? So there's actually a lot of easier steps that you can take, starting from the bottom. You can do secondary research, which is just a fancy way to say online research. So reading blogs, articles, forums, books, or podcasts about what is it like to be a special education teacher? What are the skill sets needed? How does a career progress in that kind of expertise or specialty? And then you can go on to primary research. So once you do your desktop homework on your computer for a couple days, you can actually talk to NDNU alumni. Maybe talk to special education teachers at NDNU if there are any that you can talk to, and have conversations with actual professionals and start to ask some personal questions about their career to get that extra knowledge. And then you can even move to hands-on learning. So things like university classes, side projects, maybe working with a professor or joining a student group. This is where you're moving away from just researching and actually doing. And then the next step is to find an internship if you can, working at a school or whatever during the school year or over the summer. And then it comes time to find a job. So note the difference in mindset here. It's not, okay, I have a hypothesis. I need to go and apply to like a million positions and hope that I get a full-time job or an internship. There's so many things that you can do that are a lot easier to help refine and explore whether your career hypothesis is right for you. And what you'll quickly realize is, if you can see my mouse pointer, you might make it from the secondary research stage to the primary research stage, and then you do some hands-on learning. And at that point, you're like, like I thought I'd like this career hypothesis, but after doing it for a couple of months on like a group project basis or helping a professor, it's not really my thing. I need to go back from scratch and rethink my career hypothesis. That is still a great outcome because you've now avoided doing the hard work of finding a job to validate your career hypothesis. So know that the way that you know your career hypothesis is on the right track is when you go through these steps, you like it even more and you want to get even more specific. So maybe for that person who said they want to be a special ed teacher, maybe you can even say as you move along, like specifically for kindergarten or grades 1 through 5. Like you can get more specific because you're really intense and you're really focused on exactly what you want to do, or maybe it's a particular subject. So that's just an example of how there's this common misconception that the only way that you can explore your career is through internships and jobs, but there's actually so many more resources available to you to do that. And we go over this in detail in the Career Launchpad program, but right now I'm going to give you a quick example of what I mean by testing your career hypothesis through secondary research. So let's talk about how would we test the following career hypothesis. I think I want to become a digital marketer in the makeup industry. So obviously the hardest step to do would be to try to find an internship or job at Sephora working for their Instagram strategy. I'm making that up, right? But there's so many easier things that we can do, and that's starting with online research. So here are some resources you can use to become an industry expert and test your career hypothesis without actually having to get an internship or job. Google News, a website called Quora. If you don't know what that is, definitely check it out. It's a place where you can ask questions. Reddit is a great source, especially for technology type careers like computer science and product management. And then YouTube is great, especially if you don't like reading long blog posts. You can just watch videos of people explaining, hey, here are the things you need to know to be a good special ed teacher. Here's kind of the trends that are happening that are impacting the education space with online learning. I'm making all that up, but you get the point. But let's go into more detail, because I'm pretty sure me telling you to Google search is not satisfying enough. So here's some examples that I pulled out. Just from doing a Google search. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see I did a simple Google search for digital advertising trends 2020. So here's the thing, whatever career hypothesis you have, whatever role it is, like digital advertising or special education teaching, the key is to put that in Google and then type in trends and then either 2019 or 2020 and click enter. And you'll get a bunch of Google search results that have like these cool articles that say like 7 trends to consider or 42 trends you can't ignore. Like people post these blogs and articles about like things that are going on in the space. And what you want to do is click on all of these and just read through them and see, is this stuff that you find interesting, or is it like, I'm not really feeling this kind of stuff, maybe I should consider something else. So that's what I mean by doing really detailed Google search. And to give you an idea of how detailed I go, you can see how many Google search results pop up, like 348 million. Generally what I do is I look at the first 10 pages of Google search results. So remember, each page has like maybe 7 to 8 of these links. I look at the first 10 pages. So probably clicking on in totality, like 70 to 80 different website links and researching trends and spending like a couple of days doing it, because by the end of this exercise, you're going to know exactly what's going on in the industry and what trends are taking shape. And that means career opportunities for you. So that's just one way of how you can use Google to the max to really figure out what's going on in your target industry. The next way is, let's say you have an interview coming up. And in this example, I'm going to say we're interviewing for Snapchat. You can type in Snapchat in Google News and start to look at what are some recent news articles that are coming up. And in this case, back when I did the snip of this Google search result, this is back when TikTok was still getting, it was on the fence as to whether or not it would be allowed in the US. And so Snapchat was testing a TikTok style navigation for exploring content because they wanted to copy the TikTok functionality. So if you're going into an interview with Snapchat, chances are it's in your best interest to know that they're testing this actively. Maybe ask about it in the interview, because it's probably going to be top of mind for the person who actually works at that company. So in short, if you're interviewing at a company, or even if you're just in the research phase, or you're going to be talking to a professional soon and you're getting ready for a networking session, it's always good to just research the current news of the company that you're talking about, just so you know what's going on and what's in the headlines, especially if it's a bigger company, like one that's public, like Snapchat or Facebook or Oracle or anything like that. The one on the left here is YouTube. So typing in product management undergraduate. So this is a really cool example of how there's a lot of awesome explainer videos on YouTube. Like, what does a product manager do? Like, how do you start? Like, you can even type in, product manager skill set and just understanding, okay, this is what the career is about and these are the skill sets I need. On the right-hand side is a clip from Reddit where someone made a computer science guide for undergrads and like how to think about your career. And so all of these resources can be great information for you to kind of internalize before you make that next step of talking to professionals or looking for that internship or full-time job. So step 3, after you do that, is to refine it. So after you go through these research steps, you're going to have only 2 possible outcomes. Either your career hypothesis was correct, like you really loved learning about this kind of stuff, and you're like, okay, I have a great career hypothesis. Maybe I can get even more specific. Like maybe I learned back in the Sephora example, we're going to call this a Sephora example. Maybe you learned that you really want to focus on social media marketing for makeup. And so you can get more specific with your career hypothesis, and that's a great outcome. Or maybe you researched it and you're kind of like, my hypothesis is wrong and I need to change my focus, and that's totally cool. So keep on repeating steps 1 and 2 until you get to a good step 3, which is a hypothesis that you like and where you can get more specific. All right, so that's part 1, which is crafting your career hypothesis. Again, to summarize, we talked about how to define a career hypothesis, which is basically starting somewhere, using the phrase, I think, and not beating yourself up for not knowing exactly what you want to do for the next 40, 50 years of your life, just taking a start somewhere and learning about it. We talked about how to brainstorm your own career hypothesis. So we did a quick 1-minute example. You should probably spend more time doing it on your own, but using examples from like classes that you've taken, products that you buy, things that you read or talk about with your friends. Those are all great kind of ideas to start with how to think about your career. And then lastly, we talked about validating your career hypothesis and how much information there is online to really validate whether or not you're on the right track. And in the Career Launchpad program, we actually show you how to do all this step by step. So if you have more questions, definitely check that out. Now in this part, real quick, we're going to talk about part 2, which is how to plan your recruiting process backwards. So what I'm going to do is go through a couple of stages here and give you my very simple take on the #1 thing you should be doing this academic year while at NDNU to further your career journey. So let's start off with freshmen. The action item for freshmen listening to this live and even after the fact, your goal today for the coming year is to join a student group or a couple of student groups at NDNU and take classes that further explore your career interests. So if you're interested in finance, you're interested in teaching, you're interested in history as a career, try to find some of those classes that you can take and sign up for them. And then join student groups that will put you in a community of like-minded students who you want to be like someday, or like-minded students that allow you to kind of learn from them because they're older in some way. So that's the action item for freshmen. For sophomores listening, your goal this academic year is to complete either 1 internship or part-time job relevant to your career hypothesis. So this is something that you can, if you want to be a special ed teacher, to use that example, at some point during the academic year, maybe this summer, try to find some type of opportunity where you can shadow a teacher or do an internship or even a part-time job as an assistant, again, relevant to that career hypothesis. So you start to get some experience. And then when you're a junior, your goal is to complete 2 internships, 1 during the academic year and 1 during the summer, both related to your career hypothesis, and also start building out your professional network. So a couple things here. Some of you might go through this sophomore phase and you might have to start over because your career hypothesis was wrong. That's totally fine. You can still continue with this action item of trying to find 2 internships in your new career hypothesis. Some of you also might need to work part-time to help pay off tuition, and part-time work totally covers and counts as a work experience. So if you have to work part-time and you don't have time for an internship during the academic year, that's totally fine. I would just try to lock one up for the summer where you have more time to do both maybe. And then start building your professional network. So in the Career Launchpad program, we talk about how you should really be starting to network with professionals and having maybe a couple of phone calls or conversations every month with NDNU alumni who are doing the things that you want to do from a career perspective. We talked through this in the Career Launchpad program. We're going to have a special webinar dedicated just to this that Eric and I will host down the road, so look out for that. But basically, your junior year, for those of you listening who are juniors or about to be juniors, you want to think about that as a big year to start making and building your professional network. For those of you who are seniors this year, obviously the action item here is to start applying to full-time positions, regardless of whether or not you have prior experience, continue building out your professional network, and pursuing a brand name internship relevant to your career hypothesis. So some of you, you might be qualified for full-time positions right now, in which case you should definitely apply to them. Others might want to have an internship first and then apply once they graduate, in which case I would definitely encourage you to find a brand name internship, not necessarily at like a very big company, but just a name that means a lot in your career domain. So if it's if it's special ed teaching, maybe teaching for a school district that's pretty well regarded if you can get into that type of program. If it's digital marketing, maybe working for an ad agency that's very well known. So again, senior year is where you want to step things up a bit because the optics of having a brand name on your resume are going to ring more importance when it comes time to find that full-time job. And then if you're a recent graduate and you're watching this, you pretty much focus all your efforts on networking with professionals and applying to full-time positions. It's really that simple. Those are the only 2 things you should be doing. So again, these are the simple action items that you can take regardless of what stage you are in your career and in your college journey, so to speak. But along the way, there are so many steps that you should already have ready to go, which some of these are here, which is basically you need to have a career hypothesis. So no matter where you are in this journey, you need to have a career hypothesis. Even as a freshman, it would be great to have a resume. Definitely as a recent graduate, you need to have a resume. And we have a module on the Launchpad program that'll walk you through how to create one. And then lastly, you need to have a professional network. So I'm sure you all know, especially some of the older students in the room, the days of applying to a job and just hoping to hear back are over. And you need to kind of go above and beyond by networking with NDNU alumni, trying to attend info sessions that employers kind of host at NDNU. We had one Oracle one last year. So going to those type of things and trying to build your network is going to be something that'll help you no matter what year you are at NDNU. So these are kind of 3 things that you need regardless of where you are in your career journey. All right, so that's basically what we wanted to cover today. We're gonna have some questions at the end, but I just wanna walk through for those of you who are not part of the Career Launchpad program yet. We've basically created a program that reduces the amount of time that it takes students to find a job. So on average, it takes students 3 to 6 months after graduating to find a job, and we can get you there in just a couple of weeks through our Career Launchpad program. And this works for internships too. So what is the Career Launchpad program? It's basically how to land a job or internship in a highly competitive industry as an undergraduate in just 42 days. So it's over 20 modules, and it's basically recorded videos, templates, and best practices, and actual behind the shoulder demonstrations so that you can shortcut building your own career. And of course, it's online, so you can access it anytime, anywhere, and on any device. You can go on your own pace. And here's just a list of what we cover. It's a lot. Not going to read through all of it because you all have access to it, but it's a pretty comprehensive curriculum. So for those of you who are going through this webinar and you're having questions about how to do particular things, this course will walk you through everything. And normally, actually, just last week we had about, I would say, 7 students purchase this course directly to us, and they pay a lot of money. The course retails for $397. Luckily, NDNU has partnered with us on a program and has graciously offered to make it available to students for $0. So basically 100% off. Again, to take your career journey from 3 to 6 months to just a couple of weeks. And you think about how much that's worth in terms of foregone wages, just having more clarity in your life, having a more exciting future to look forward to when you have your career off and running, so you don't have to worry about that. I mean, there's easily, I would estimate as a college student, 4 to 5 figures of value packed into this program that NDNU is making available totally free. So the way to get started is by clicking on the link in the chat. So I'm going to repost that here. Let's see. I think I have it from up top. Here you go. So you can just click on that link and get started. For those of you who are already signed up to the program but haven't yet started watching the classes, I encourage you to do so, just because the earlier that you can apply this information, the better off you're going to be. So if you're a freshman or sophomore and you're watching this program and you're like, well, I have until senior year to think about my career, I would actually argue it should be the opposite. You have 2 to 3 years ahead of you to explore your career interests. Why not do it the right way and learn all the techniques and actually have an excellent career during your time at NDNU? And for those of you who are recent graduates who just need to find a job ASAP, this course will help you do that. If you have any issues accessing the course, I'm going to provide my personal email address just so we can troubleshoot. Normally, we haven't had any students that have had trouble, so you should be fine. But feel free to let myself or Eric know. And in addition to the course program, we also have a Facebook group here that I'm going to repost down at the bottom. So this is basically a forum where you can learn from other like-minded students, ask questions, join our regular Q&A calls. And also it's a forum for you to share your success and have Rohan and I help you. Aside from the program, we also have a monthly webinar series. So every month we're going to be doing these, a different topic, different stage, and you're going to learn about it. NDNU is going to let you know what the monthly topic is, and I'm going to be hosting it. So it'll be a great forum to kind of put some of these principles to practice and hear from you if you're having any issues putting these things to life. So again, get started with the program by clicking on the link. And if you're still on the fence or you're not sure if this is the program for you, that's totally fine. We regularly run surveys where students tell us, how exciting it is and how useful it is. And, someone said they'd rate it 9 out of 10 because they don't want anyone else to know about it, which is pretty funny. Another one that I love is Great for people who want to go straight to the point, no flowery language or BS. Hopefully you can get across from my presentation today and by watching some of the videos that this is real advice that has worked for Rohan and I and has worked for hundreds of students, which is why NDNU is super excited about making this available. This is not some fluffy stuff about following your passion and then not giving you actionable advice to follow. So definitely this will show you exactly what you do. And of course, Rohan and I get bombarded by students every day on LinkedIn telling them some new career outcome that they got that was amazing, whether it was an internship at PwC or Sony Pictures or everything in between. It's really fun to see that, and we'd love to have that success for you. So again, get started by clicking on the link in the chat and start watching some of the program modules. You have my email address if you have any questions. You have the Facebook group for ongoing supports. But at this point, I will shut up because I've said a lot, and I will turn it over to Eric to see if we have any questions or anyone else here on the call who wants to chime in. Just feel free to unmute your mic and ask questions.
Not a question, but I was just curious if you were aware of like the search hacks for Google. If you're like searching for something specific using like the plus and minus feature. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to post a link to that just for everyone else. I learned this in my data analytics class a couple weeks ago. But just if you, for example, if you're trying to look for something related to like bass guitar, but bass is also spelled as like bass fish. If you didn't want to search, like if you're searching for bass guitar and you kept typing in bass, it would sometimes bring up bass fish. So what you would essentially do is put the minus sign right before bass without a space, and it'll completely take out all those the bass fish searches. So this link actually really does help. So if you are trying to narrow down your search for things that, or a topic that you're looking for, I would strongly encourage you to use that link.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great example too. There's so many tips and tricks with Google searches, so I'm glad that you linked that out, Eric. And also there's like you can click on settings or tools on Google searching, and you can search by like time. So you can say in the past year or in the past month. So for like Google News, sometimes I only want articles that are relevant over the past couple of months, and Google allows you to do that. So Sarita, great to see you're already signed up. Awesome, hope you like it. Great. Yeah, if you have another meeting, if you have a hard stop, guys, no worries. But if there's any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Oh, one more thing before people start to dial out. If you found value out of this program, and you want to attend the next monthly series, which I assume that you'd want to, just because it's a very good way to complement the online learning. I would ask that if you like the quality of the program, please bring a friend who's also at NDNU. I think not a lot of students know about this, and we're trying to spread the word. And what's been interesting is people who actually follow through the program and they start to join these webinars, they love the advice. So definitely bring a friend next time and let them know that this exists.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, the next webinar we have scheduled is going to be October 29th at 2 p.m. And that is, I believe, a Thursday. Could be wrong.
Yeah.
Yep, Thursday.
And Eric, maybe we can send out a message to students about where the recordings will be made available if they want to kind of work through them.
Yeah, I'm finalizing the career webpage right now. It's going to have a completely different look to it. So
oh, great. Okay.
I didn't want to post anything yet until like I had complete revision because it hasn't been touched in quite a few years.
Sure.
But it should be coming down the line in like a couple weeks or so.
Okay, great. And actually what I might do, and what I can talk to my brother about, is we can actually post these webinar recordings as part of the course content at the very end. It's like a bonus content section. So maybe I do that as well in case people want to see it there.
Yeah, no, I would appreciate it if you actually did post those.
Yeah, cool. Brandon, thanks for attending. Really appreciate it. Marissa, anyone else have any? Jennifer, Nancy.
Dia.
Rosella, anyone?
It's Marissa. I did have a question. I don't know if this is really Anyway, I'm just gonna ask it. Never mind. So I'm currently working at LPCH, the Children's Hospital in Palo Alto, and I am trying to go from relief to part-time, and then eventually to full-time. I'm not really sure how to bring up that conversation though with my current manager. I don't know if you've had any experience with that or have any advice about it, I guess.
Sure. Sorry. So can you restate the question? You're going from, you want to
I'm in
go
a
from
relief. Yeah, I'm in a relief, so pretty much like on call whenever somebody calls out, I'm kind of there. But I need to be in a better financial position, so I prefer to be part-time or at least full-time or something like that. But I just don't know how to bring up the conversation to my manager because I haven't been there for a year, so I just feel like it's a little premature to have the conversation. But I don't know if you had any advice, I guess.
Sure. When's the last time you talked to your manager?
Oh, it's been, well, the beginning of the month I send my availability.
Hmm.
So, or the last week of the month prior. So, since the last week of
August.
August, yeah.
And so you haven't worked there in a year, is what you said?
No, yeah, I haven't been there like employed for a year yet. So I just got hired there in March. So I was like, I feel like it's kind of early for me to be asking this question, but I wasn't sure. So
Gotcha. Well, so if you joined in March, have you actually worked for that position yet since March of
yeah,
2020?
yeah. There was a freeze because of COVID for a while, so I was not getting any hours, but I was still employed. But my hours just started picking up little by little. That's about
Okay.
it.
And do you have any insight as to whether whether your performance is generally good, or like has it been difficult for you?
I think it's been fine. There's not a whole. I mean, I think that I've gotten like shout outs and stuff from my coworkers and it's been pretty good. The hard part about being relief and working in care coordination is that, and I work for all the service lines in the hospital, so it's like I pretty much go a month, a week, 2 weeks, away from what's going on, and then I kind of have to jump into it and
Yeah.
be versatile and it's kind of chaotic. So I would much rather prefer like a stable schedule and like know what to expect. Just because right now I'm an internship for two separate like mental health sites, and I don't really get paid for either of those until I hit the year mark. And so it's been kind of hard just like financially. So I just need like a way to wiggle my way in there.
Sure, sure. So you're already doing another internship in the mental health space, which I assume is also related to your career hypothesis. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
I have two right now. I'm working
Wow,
with the county.
you're busy.
Yeah, I
um,
have my life, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's great. And guys, that's exact perfect illustration of when you have a great career hypothesis, it doesn't always feel like work. It is tough, but it doesn't always seem like you're having to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things. I'm a big fan of, in general, controlling what you can. And so there's one variable that I think is weighing pretty heavily here that we cannot control, which is the actual workload that your manager has and
Yeah.
his or her ability to create those opportunities for you, right? Because even if they wanted to have you around more often, they can't if there's not enough work and there's too many people on the roster, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? So what I would do is honestly just have that conversation. You can totally be open and say, I just want to have a conversation with you over the phone about how I can, have more experience or start participating more, working more, because I am trying to get more hands-on experience. I wouldn't necessarily position it as you're trying to get more money, but just
Yeah.
kind of becoming a better professional. And here's
Yeah.
the thing, either that person is going to say, okay, well, you might be too junior, and so there needs to be more training to make you more useful from a utilization perspective. That's a possibility, in which case, okay, you need to kind of train more, and that's a potential outcome. Another outcome might be, well, I'd love to, but there's just not enough work here. And, there's too many people we have on the roster, and given what's going on with COVID, it's a bit difficult. That's another outcome. Or a third outcome, hopefully, is they're like, sure, let's try to work something out in the coming weeks. Now, those are all three potential scenarios. What I would also acknowledge or try to encourage you to do is, since you already have an internship that you're pursuing related to your career hypothesis, and if money is tight for you during this time, I might encourage you to look elsewhere for like part-time work that's more normal, that might not even be related to your career hypothesis, but just so you can bring in money. And I only recommend that because you're already doing an internship related to your career hypothesis. So I'd rather you do, part-time work in retail or retail adjacent and have that one internship, rather than do two internships that are unpaid that are for your career hypothesis, because I don't think that's necessarily the most productive thing for you to be doing. And just out of curiosity, what year are you?
Oh, I'm a grad student about to graduate in May.
Okay, yeah.
I'll have my papers and I'll be done.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and then maybe it's time to start looking for just full-time work. So maybe you look for a part-time job, continue with that other mental health internship, and then kind of look for that full-time job. But I do understand that that's a little bit easier said than done in today's environment. So that's again why I'm a little bit advising more to kind of get that near-term cash than continue to invest in these long-term things.
Definitely. Because the other thing is that there's supposed to be, and this is the only reason why I don't want to leave like Stanford, because it's such a amazing institution, and like I would love to see like a future there for me. But they also have a position, and the work I do at Stanford has nothing to do with my major, anything like that. So that's the other thing I'm kind of
another insight for students listening. Yeah.
Yeah, it has nothing, which I figured, I being in this kind of field, I know that it's a lot of knowledge, it's a lot of education based. It's not a lot of like, you don't get to go head first into it, as soon as you want to, which would be great. But so working at Stanford, there's supposedly, my manager had reached out to me directly and said, hey, we're going to start this full-time position in the psychiatry department, basically doing the same thing in care coordination, but it's way more related to what I'm doing now, like scheduling appointments for clients, working on discharging and all this stuff. And so I was kind of like absolutely fell in love, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that would be perfect for my future. And just being in the psychiatry department, the only thing is they let me know that it's not within the budget this fiscal year. So I'm like waiting it out, and I'm just like, I don't know if I could get another part-time job right now because I don't want to leave, and I don't want to like, so it's just but I guess just more advice about how to start the conversation with my manager was kind of where I was going with it. Just my manager's really supportive, and she's totally flexible about everything. So it's like really nice to have that kind of relationship because you don't see it too often. I feel so I'm just trying to figure out how to talk about it.
I think just hearing you talk about it, the most powerful thing you can do with your manager, especially one on your side, is just tell your story. Just be honest. Have the same conversation you're having with me right now. I think they're going to want to help you to the best that they can. So I don't think there's like a special tactic or something you have to do. I would just schedule a phone call or however you communicate with him or her. I definitely would advise away from just asking over an email or even a text. I think you need to kind of tell your story over the phone or in person and have them hear you out, right? And honestly, approach it more so as like, hey, if you were in my shoes, like what would you do? And they might point you to another department in the system, or they might say like, hang on tight, like there's something coming. So if you position it like that, they might be more inclined to help you in different ways that are not just immediately like, get me more hours.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sahil.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great opportunity. And also, obviously at a big hospital system like Stanford, I'll amend my advice and say that you shouldn't just, exit off completely if it doesn't work out. Chances are you can ask for referrals. You can ask if there's other departments that are hiring. And because you're already kind of working there, you're already way more ahead than anyone who's applying from the outside. So you've already done a lot of the work there. Just want to make sure you remember that.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Good question. All right, a couple more minutes. Anyone else? Awesome. Well, Eric, I think we can wrap up here. Thanks everyone for joining. Again, the class link is there. And for those of you who are watching after the fact and maybe can't see the chat, I'm pretty sure you can on my screen, but if you can't, feel free to shoot me an email and we can go ahead and get you course access. Of course, if you're watching this, there's probably a good chance that the course access link will be posted on the career website soon. But yeah, thanks again for joining. Again, if you found this helpful, please bring a friend next time. And we look forward to doing next month's series, where I think we're going to be talking about in a couple of weeks, the next step, which is how to actually do some of this research more in depth and start to build out your professional network.
Thank you so much, Sahil. Really appreciate your insight today.
Of course. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.
Right. Bye.